Okay, so now that I've talked about what happened with me, kind of, I want to talk about the common stages that I experienced and that you might experience as well. And again, like for me, this all happened super quick, but it might be like over a prolonged period. Like I think usually we say it's like up to 3 months that people can like act a certain way that they are actually not. So like these stages don't have to happen this quick. That was intense, but it could. But yeah, so let's go through the 5 stages. So the stage 1 is the setup. So it's like a false closeness that they create. So it's like early false intimacy, for example, like mirroring your values. So with me, like I said, like I'm vegan, and then he would be like, oh well, my whole family is vegan and stuff. Like he's like mirroring the values, and he's like, well, basically I am, I just don't like labels. That's basically what he was saying. He wasn't saying he was, but still. But then later on, like I looked into his fridge because I was like, am I tripping? Like what is going on? And his whole fridge was like definitely not vegan. Like and I don't have a problem with that. It's just the fact that he was mirroring my values, because that's just something they do. It's like this false closeness because it creates this bond, this connection that isn't actually there. Because I was like, oh, what? Why didn't you tell me? Like I didn't know your whole family was vegan. So it's like this closeness, but it's not real. And it's not adding up with the actions and the actual facts. So that's stage 1. Also pushing boundaries, and like before the trust is even built, like the thing with the darling, that's like a red flag in that false closeness, where he was pushing boundaries. Even if it is a small boundary, it's still a boundary. Also in this stage, it is like it creates a bonding illusion despite lack of genuine connection, like I already said. Okay, and then the neuroscience insights for this stage is that there's like oxytocin release because of this closeness that you're feeling. Oxytocin is like the love hormone, I believe, and that lowers your guard, and it starts blurring those boundaries, which is exactly what happened to me. And it's making you feel like connected and safe, even if the intentions are not genuine, but you don't know that. You might feel it though. You might, if you're in touch with your intuition, you might feel it. You might have this, underlying feeling. And I think most of us do. It's like the butterflies that we talk about. Okay, so that's stage 1. So it's the false closeness, the setup. And then stage 2 is the subtle control and boundary testing. So here they're really starting to test your boundaries and push them with inconsistent behavior and intrusive questions, and also controlling actions. So like the screenshot of my flight, that's a controlling action. Intrusive questions, like I remember like every time I was like, oh well, I don't want to kiss, for example, he'd be like, why we wouldn't stop asking why until I don't even know why anymore. And in this stage is also where you might start neglecting your self-care routines and stuff. From the neuroscientific point of view, in this stage is where we have these dopamine-driven reward loops, which create like emotional highs and lows because there's inconsistency, right? So sometimes there's like this really strong push, like intense, like let's do this and that, and like really, really like from 0 to 100, which is giving you this really emotional high, but then they take everything away again. They strip it all off, which is the really emotional low. So it's like a dopamine reward loop. Activation of the sympathetic nervous system also starts here, which means you're releasing a lot of adrenaline and cortisol, which is heightened stress, and also impairs your decision making, because if your sympathetic nervous system is activated, you just can't make decisions that well because you're not basing them on facts anymore. Okay, so that's stage 2. Stage 3 is isolation and emotional invalidation. So it could be like limiting social connections. Like I was saying, we didn't do anything social, even though this dude lives there. So surely you would have some sort of friends. And like, how come you're not doing anything at all with your friends or whatever during the whole time I'm there? Because like, if I had someone come here, I would make sure that we're doing something social to have fun. So yeah, limiting social connections, minimizing interests, invalidating feelings to increase your dependency and weaken your support system. So for example, like with the jellyfish, like he was not validating my feelings at all. He was invalidating them. He was like, oh, they're harmless, like they don't sting. And I even said, like, I'm gonna look it up. And he's like, well, if you look it up, like, of course it's gonna say it hurts and stuff, like fully invalidating everything I was saying, like my whole reality, which is like gaslighting, right? And also in this stage, you have further neglect of self-care from all the emotional overwhelm that is happening, because there's so much going on, even if like there's not a lot planned, but emotionally there's a lot going on. So you're overwhelmed and you just can't make space for these routines to care for yourself. Neuroscientifically, in this stage, we have prolonged stress, which activates the sympathetic nervous system. It increases your cortisol and adrenaline, so you have higher cortisol and adrenaline, which now can cause anxiety, hypervigilance, and also impairing your emotional regulation. So now you're struggling to regulate your emotions, and you're having a lot of emotions. So now the good thing here is, if you start to re-engage your routines and self-care and stuff, that can trigger and activate your parasympathetic system, which is the rest and digest, which is what we want to calm the stress and restore balance. So that's a little trick, but I'm going to talk about tools later. Okay, so that's stage 3, that's isolation and emotional invalidation. And then we have stage 4, which is withdrawal and passive discard. So this is really interesting, because this is like the counter to what was happening before with like kind of like love bombing situation. Now they will withdraw emotionally, physically, whatever, respond less or not at all. Like I was making examples where he would just not give a reply whatsoever, and avoidance as well, like just completely avoid. For example, like me saying no or things being awkward, that's just being completely avoided, like passive. Nothing is happening about that. Nothing is talked about. Neuroscientifically speaking, in stage 4, we have social rejection, because you're being socially rejected, right? Like if someone isn't responding and is withdrawing completely, especially if they've already isolated you. So now you're alone with this person, and now this person is giving you nothing. So you are being rejected. So this social rejection then activates the brain regions that are involved in physical pain. Isn't that crazy? And trigger your stress response. And that then reinforces that unhealthy attachment, because you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm like rejected. And the only person that can make me feel less rejected is that person that is here, because there's no one else around. So now you're building this attachment, which is unhealthy and toxic. And then we have stage 5, which is the final confusion and the jealousy trigger. So in the post-relationship of a manipulative relationship of any kind, a tactic would be like a provocative social media post, like I was saying with the concert, blame shifting and hoovering to regain control or provoke reactions. So anything just to get a little reaction from you. So they're really trying to draw you back in with that final confusion. Neuroscientifically, this exploits your craving for closure, because obviously as a normal human being, you want closure, you want to understand, and these people, you just don't really understand their actions. So yeah, it exploits your craving for closure and social connection as well. It activates your dopamine and stress circuits. And then obviously, since this has been going on for a while, there's like chronic stress, and that impairs your prefrontal cortex, which is the emotional regulation part of your brain, and decision making as well. And so it's keeping you really psychologically hooked to them, which is insane. So I think this is so interesting, and I think knowing all of this makes it easier to not only spot the behavior but also pull yourself back out of it. Now, so these were the 5 stages. I'm just gonna say what they're called. So stage 1, this is based on science, but that's not their actual names in the different science books, but this is just an example. So stage 1 would be the setup or false closeness. Stage 2, the subtle control and boundary testing. Stage 3, isolation and emotional invalidation. Stage 4, withdrawal and passive discard. And stage 5, final confusion and jealousy trigger. So that's that. Now, to end all of this, I have made so many examples of my own recent story. This isn't the first time that I've been in a toxic kind of thing, and I hope it will be the last time, but who knows? I will try my best to get out of it as fast as possible and see the red flags. But anyways, based on this most recent, really intense but really quick toxic relation to someone, I've given you a lot of examples, and I do want to label them a little bit into generalized red flags, because you might experience similar things but not exactly what I've experienced. So I want to give more generalized red flags. And so I want to talk about some toxic traits that you might notice. So one that is very commonly used and is definitely a toxic trait that happens a lot is love bombing. As sad as it is so easy to fall for love bombing, because who doesn't like love and being loved and getting gifts and having people say nice things to you, doing everything for you, it's hard. So love bombing is one toxic trait. And for example, for me, that would be, him saying darling to me very early on. And also the jokes that he was making the first night, and also mirroring my values. That is also love bombing, because he is acting like we are connecting over the veganism and stuff like that. In general, for love bombing, red flags could be like just excessive attention, like giving you all the attention and affection early on to create this false closeness. Then we have the toxic trait manipulation. So I already explained what manipulation means, but in this toxic trait, a red flag would be like twisting the reality to confuse you and push your limits. And so for me, that would have been like making me feel weird about setting boundaries, like darling, because he wasn't really following it. So it made me feel weird, and like it was a dumb boundary. Also, like he was saying, because with the nudist speech and stuff, like he was saying like, oh, I'm basically weird for thinking that being naked is sexual, but he was the one that was making things sexual. So he's very contradicting and manipulating my own perception of these things. Also ignoring your nose and calling you confusing, like especially when they're pushing boundaries, and maybe one single time you don't stick up for yourself and you do give in a little bit because you're like, oh, well, it's okay if he just says darling or whatever. And then they have proof, kind of, to show you that you are confusing because you said not to call him darling, but now it's okay. So they don't really know what you want and all of this stuff. So they create this confusion. Vague or misleading statements, and like changing plans constantly and stuff. Like, for example, with him, he continuously would say like, well, I'm going to do this at this time, and then it would change into something else at a different time, and I don't even know if he ended up doing that, and that kept repeating itself over and over again. So it's very vague and misleading. Also, a manipulation that I think was so creepy that happened to me was that he took a photo of me while I was stretching, and I didn't even know he was home. He took a photo of me, and then he went on to show me something on his phone, and I saw that photo because it was like probably the last one that he took. And he did it twice, like no embarrassment, no shame. And I feel like that was like a power move, like to see how it would react, right? Like pushing it. Anyway, so manipulation. So we have love bombing, manipulation, then boundary violations. So disregarding your stated limits, like you've already said it, you shouldn't have to say it more than once, but you can remind someone, but then that's it. Like that's it. You need to have a consequence and follow through with that consequence. But yeah, disregarding your stated limits physically, emotionally, in whatever way. So for me, for example, the darling, taking photos without my permission, did not have my permission, and moving really fast with the physical stuff, even though I said no. Even though I said I want to be friends, right? But then there is like gray areas, like is a hug okay? Like who knows? Like that's all I'm going to share about that. But boundary violations are a big, big, big one. So be clear on your boundaries. Know yourself which boundaries you have before you get sucked into this stuff, because it's very hard to get out of it, like to understand what you even want once you're in it. And then we have coercion. Now, coercion is something that I've learned very recently about. Like I didn't even really know what that was until like a month or so ago. So it's like pressuring or forcing you into unwanted actions. But it doesn't have to be like a physical pressure. Like it doesn't have to be like them pinning you against the wall and saying like, if you don't do this, or like putting it to your head or something. I don't think I should say that on the podcast, but you know, it doesn't have to be like a physical pressure, but it could just be like verbally, or like with how they say things or how they act, and also repeatedly asking the same things even though you already gave an answer. For example, he invited me fishing with his dad. I said no, and he invited me again like 4 more times. So that's coercion. Or, you know, physically it would be maybe like moving really close to you for a kiss even though you already refused before, but just testing it, you know. So basically it's just like making you feel uncomfortable about what you want, so then you end up doing what they want. And maybe you're even scared. Okay, so that's coercion. Then we have control and surveillance. I don't really know how to say that word. I know what it means, but I've never used that in my vocabulary at all. But control and like stalking you, basically. Like they know where you are. They monitor you. They know where you are, what you're doing, your movements, and that is limiting your freedom. You might be like, I don't care who knows where I am, what I'm doing, who I'm with. Like, I really couldn't care less. But the thing is, it does limit your freedom, and it's not okay because you're an adult, you're independent, and you shouldn't have someone stalking you the whole time, even if you don't really care about it. It's creepy, and it's a red flag for sure. Okay, then we have emotional invalidation. So that happened to me a lot because everything I was saying, there was like no reply whatsoever. I could be excited, I could be sad, I could be frustrated, I could be whatever, laughing. Like there was just no answer at all. So it's just like ignoring or minimizing your emotions or your experiences. And I think that's a very common one. And it's so sad because all we want is really just to be understood and validated in our perception of reality. And if you don't get that, that can make you feel so lonely, especially over time. And then we have the push-pull dynamic. So creating an emotional confusion by alternating closeness with distance. And that is a very, very, very intense feeling if that is happening, because you just get so confused. You're like, did I do something wrong? Like, what happened? So it's this showing interest, then withdrawing. Yeah. So that's push and pull dynamic. And then the last one, oh no, there's 3 more. There's also the victim mentality. I think this one is a big red flag in general. Like just always avoiding responsibility, and just making it seem like they are the victim, and at the end of the day, it is your fault. Like, oh, I am so sad about how I acted. You have no idea how much this is hurting me. They messed up, and now all of a sudden you have to hold their emotions for their mess up. It's crazy. So this whole victim mentality, oh, it triggers me. It really annoys me. I think there's a lot of people that have this victim mentality, and to be honest, I'm sure I've been there. Like we all get times and experiences where we're like, oh, poor me, you know, and we just want to be held like a little kid. Like it happens. But if it is repeatedly, consistently, always like this, that's victim mentality, and that is so tiring and exhausting for everyone around, and confusing too. It's like, wait, should I feel bad for them right now? Okay, and then we have gaslighting. Gaslighting is more than lying. Gaslighting is like making you question your reality. So they're not just lying anymore. They're flipping everything around so you end up questioning yourself. So, for example, with him, I don't think there was that much that happened, but yeah, like for example, the jellyfish reaction thing, right? Like I said, it's gonna hurt me, and he was like, no, they're harmless. So that would be just like lying, I guess, because I'm like, I know they're not just harmless. But then the gaslighting came when I said, I'm gonna look it up, and he's like, well, of course, if you look it up, then it's gonna say that. So he's gaslighting me, telling me that that reality is not true, because if I'm looking it up, it's gonna give me a wrong answer somehow. Yeah, so that's gaslighting. Okay, and that makes you feel like your feelings aren't valid, and that is, again, a big issue. And last one is hoovering. Now, I didn't know this word, but it's like attempts to re-enter your life to regain control or stir emotions. Like I know hoovering like from like birds, I think. But yeah, so it's like they're like just flying above and then see if they can insert themselves somehow one last time. And control you one last time. So like him coming around to say goodbye even though he's supposed to be at work or whatever, like that kind of stuff. So yeah, so those are some of the red flags that you might notice yourself. I hope you do. And now for the end of this podcast, I think this might be 2 parts, honestly, because I've been talking for so long. But for this last part, of course, the name of the podcast is Growing and Showing Tools to make you build your best life. So you're going to get some tools. There are 5 tools on how to spot the red flags early and get out. Because don't stick around. It's going to be so much harder because you have the time you've wasted and spent on it. So you're like, oh, I'm already in it. It might get better and all of this stuff. It's like the sunk cost fallacy, right? And you're just not as objective on it anymore. And it's going to get worse and worse, honestly. Usually it gets worse and worse. Like, I haven't really ever heard of an example where it got better. Because, like, they're at the start, this is their best version of themselves. Like, this is the trial. This is them putting on the best of the best. They can't be better than this. Like, this is already more than they are. So if they're already messing up now, imagine how it's going to turn out in 3 months' time when they can't keep up with what they've promised and what they've acted out. Okay, so the top 5 tools to spot and get out of these situations. Number 1 is trust your intuition. I know it can be really hard, especially if you didn't grow up trusting your intuition, but trust it. If you feel something is off, it probably is off. So don't ignore these gut feelings and really listen to them because they're your brain warning you. So listen to it and just tick until you see a pattern. Once you see a pattern, that's that. Like, leave. So trust your intuition. Number 2, set clear boundaries and expect them to be respected. And also have consequences if they're not. But set clear boundaries. And they can also be dumb boundaries, like me saying I don't want him to call me darling. That's fine. That's like almost like a test. Like, is he going to be able to keep this really small thing or not? Is he going to be able to do that? Because it's a really small ask, really. So set these clear boundaries, state your limits firmly, like really say, this is what I need, this is what I don't want. And then if they push back or disrespect you, don't second guess yourself. Like, that's a clear red flag. And don't give them the benefit of the doubt. Again, especially at the start, like, this is their best self. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt. Just take it by their actions, not by their words. If they're like, oh, I'm really trying. No, you're not, because you're still saying it. So you're not trying. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, keep up with your routines and grounding practices. I really think this one is what snapped me out of it so quickly. So I think this is like one of the best tools ever, because if you keep up with your routines, like self-care and whatever, that really does keep you grounded. Also, like, psychologically speaking, like neuroscience wise, like in your brain, like it is keeping you grounded. It is getting you out of that hormonal cloud that you're in. So then you get less swept up and you can regulate your emotions better, and then you can think objectively and realize, oh, there's a red flag, maybe I should get out. So maintain your habits, whether it's journaling, meditating, exercising, whatever, because these really help you stay balanced and see things clearly and make it easier to stick up for your boundaries. Yeah. Then number 4, we have an exit plan. So always know how you can leave a situation if needed. Of course, we hope we don't have to use this, but have a plan B, have a backup plan, have an out, a safe place to go to, whether it's, like your train, like what train to take to get home, whether it's, oh, I can call this friend, like have an exit plan. And number 5, very last tool, is keep your support network close. So make sure you're connected with your friends, family, whoever is close to you and you can trust, and you feel like they support you and they would step in if needed. So make sure that you're keeping them close, keep them updated, Yeah, and that's it. So those are my 5 tools. Number 1, trust your intuition. Number 2, set clear boundaries. Number 3, keep up with your routines. Number 4, have an exit plan. And number 5, keep your support network close. I really hope that you never have to use this. But if you do, you've got this. It is not your fault. It could happen to anyone, like I said. The important thing is that you are keeping yourself safe and healthy. And once you realize it, the quicker you realize it, the better, obviously. Get out. You don't deserve this. You deserve so much better. You deserve healthy relationships, friendships, healthy connections, a healthy life, a happy life. Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you again next time. Bye.